Hello, happy Friday to my PPS 777A class. Hope you guys had a great week. Um, Obviously, we didn't meet this week, and I know that I didn't get a video out right away, but just want to touch base with you folks and go through some of your readings as well as what to expect in the coming weeks. Most of all, I want to give you guys time. I know that you guys are currently taking 3 classes, which is quite a big load. I want you to know that I'm mostly here for a support system to guide you guys through your research and writing. And I want to make sure we're working together and you guys are feeling like, we're getting this done and chunking it out. Biggest thing is I don't want you to feel overwhelmed in your writing. I want you to feel like we're building up towards it. And I do feel like the methods that we're using will enable you to incrementally have success. And the next thing you know, you're going to be done with all your chapters. So having said that, I would like to go into a little bit about the topics in your readings. Please stay tuned. At the end of this video, I'll have just a few questions and a few updates for you to be aware of. On those questions, I would like you to email me a response just as a check-in. Okay, so we're in week 3 of this class. This is a no meeting week. I want to talk about chapter 3 of your book. So the first thing is identifying a problem. What is something that needs to be explored in your field? Or is your research going to help in this area? Is it going to contribute to your profession? Is this something that can truly be studied? Is this something that you can actually do a study on and come to conclusions? We have to be very specific. We can't be too broad in identifying a problem and addressing a problem. Make sure that you've narrowed it down and that your research and your study will address this specifically. Remember, we can't change the world with one thesis, but we can start the process to change the world. So your topic should be identifying a problem that you can research and make an impact on yourself in your current context or in your field of study. You should have a connection. You should have a passion for this subject because you're going to be really digging deep into the subject. So you're going to be sick of it by the end, so make sure you actually enjoy it. Do you have the time and capacity and access to study what you're asking? Are you in a position where you can actually accomplish this and connect with the people you need to talk to and see the data that you need to see? Can you think in a way in which your study could be used in your current context? So what kind of study can you use in your internship or where you already work? In creating a question, you have to be specific, timely, it has to be researchable, and it has to be a need. It needs to be phrased in a way that can be studied by you. So there can't be a yes or no question. It's got to be somewhat descriptive. So you have to be really digging deep, and you shouldn't have the answer yet going into it. So your question will guide you in what you need to know before your study. So that would be your literature review. Where are your gaps? Where are you finding you need to do more research and there needs to be more research in your field? What's your overarching topic? And what are your subtopics? For our class, we're focusing on three subtopics. So what are you going to be researching? What are you going to be an expert in? And from those 3 topics, you'll set the stage for your actual study. This question will guide you from your lit review through your methodology to your findings and to your conclusions. So it's really important that your question addresses the need, but also it's really important that your question is something that you can tweak from here from time to time. So you may be researching and you may find you need to change it a little bit based on the need. So in your literature review, you need to identify, like I said, your topic and what your 3 subtopics are. Last week we worked on developing the matrix. So that's your Google sheet. And that is where you are putting in your citations, putting in your quotes, and that's how you get your literature review done. And then you approach it one at a time. Research one thing at a time, get your quotes, get your sources, and make sure that they're balanced. In defining terms, at the beginning of chapter 1, there's a section where all your key terms, and usually there's about 5 or less, maybe a little more, but you need to identify those. So, for example, if you're writing chapter 1 on a PBIS study in Fresno County schools, your terms could be PBIS, RTI, SECO, restorative practices. So you have to identify those so a reader who might not have a background in it knows what those terms are, because you'll be repeating these terms throughout your study. Developing your literature review, you really just skim. Do not read entirely when you're reading sources. Don't pull too many quotes from one source, because then you'll be unbalanced. You should mostly use primary sources, so that means you should be looking for a thesis or dissertation when you look. And you should really aim for 4 to 5 quotes at the most from each source. So as you fill up your matrix, make sure your research is distributed evenly. There might be a real small subtopic that you need to cover that you don't need to do a lot of research in, but for example, if you're researching Eastern Madera County or Southeast Asian populations, you do need to set the tone, and that you might have to do a little bit of research on those subtopics. Your research question may change over time. This is a warning. That's perfectly okay. Right now, we're just focusing on your topic and starting with an initial question. But as soon as you determine a source is something you will use, enter the full APA bibliography reference and the topic it relates to in the matrix. So those are just a couple of warnings as you get started. Don't feel too much pressure to stick with the same thing. It can evolve over time. So the questions I have for you is, how has your research been going? How many sources do you have? Do you feel confident in writing your proposal? If not, what questions do you have? Give me your research question and 3 topics in your 3 research topics that you have as of right now. And the reason why I am asking you these questions now is because I just kind of want to get a feel for where you're at in the process. Last week we covered a lot of ground in narrowing down your questions. Some of you were still kind of working on that, but that is why next week we're going to spend some time on the phone. So we won't be meeting next Wednesday, but I will be scheduling appointments with each of you to talk on the phone. And if you're more comfortable, we could do a Google Hangout or FaceTime. And I just want to work one-on-one with you for a while. And I want to see what you're doing on your proposal, so I'll have you email what you have. It is due Wednesday, so we'll kind of go over that together. Again, don't feel any pressure to have everything perfectly tied up. The proposal is simply that. You're proposing your idea, what your questions are, and things like that. So please make sure you email that to drdanielching@gmail.com so that I know where you're at. I appreciate everybody taking the time. So with that, that's just kind of your briefing, your topics. You'll notice that there's a lot of overlap from last week that we discussed, and that's intentional. I want you to feel more and more comfortable and acquainted with this process, and you're going to find that by doing this and really getting your matrix started for the lit review for chapter 2, chapter 1 will flow really well, and you're going to feel pretty good about that. So continue to do your research. You know, you should be doing a handful of sources each week as we get closer along. Your first draft of your lit review is on the horizon. It's still a few weeks out, but I want to make sure that we're plugging away. And as long as you're getting those quotes and pulling those sources at your own pace and at a good pace, when you go to write, it's going to be a little easier. And you can categorize them. That's the whole point, so that your writing can be more free-flowing. We're going to do some workshop days. We're going to spend a lot of time side by side working on this, but this is all about you and your success and making sure we are taking steps towards completing your thesis. So with that, I bid you farewell. I hope you have a great 3-day weekend. Go relax, take some time with your family and friends, do some things for yourself, do some self-care, and after that, we'll get back to it. Thank you, everybody. See you later.